guys, welcome back to my art channel. If you're new, hi, I'm May, and I make digital fluid art and digital pour art with cells. And today we're going to be looking at how to make expand bubble cells on IbisPaint. So if you haven't heard of this program before, it's a pretty cool art program, and it's free for iOS and Android. And if you already have it, let's get started. So we're going to be opening up a canvas of 4 by 2.8 inches, 600 dpi, which should be 2400 by 1680. Okay. Shrink our canvas down. Now, before we can make our expand bubble cells, we're going to have to create a digital fluid pour, which I do have a tutorial up on its own on how to create one, so go check that out if you haven't already. But if you have, let's get started. This is the color palette I've chosen for today. Some muted purples, greens, yellows, and blues. So feel free to screenshot the screen if you'd like to copy these colors and follow along exactly. Or pick whatever color you'd like. And I've not picked a brush yet. So actually I'll start with pen and we'll do fade. It's a good brush. I always like to check the settings to make sure that I have no restrictions on the size of my brush. So if you go to settings and make sure your maximum thickness is all the way up. So that way you can shrink it as low or as high as you want. And I think today we'll start with a black background. And I always like to do it on a second layer. Like so. And then start laying our colors in a random pattern. Which is always fun. Like I said, you can make these as intricate or as complex as you like, or you can keep it super simple. For today's purposes, I'm going to be keeping it fairly simple so that way we can just get the base idea of how to create these cells. And that way you can learn the technique and play with it however you like. All those little blue screens are popping up because I recently had to reinstall IbisPaint. I find after you've been using it for a while, it can get a bit laggy. And if that's the case, you can try clearing your cache. Sometimes works. But I find after 50 to 100 pieces of art, it really starts to lag. And the easiest way to do it is to just uninstall and reinstall the app. And just make sure to download all your artwork. Because if you leave any artwork on there when you uninstall it, unfortunately it will disappear. Which I have made that mistake in the past before. So if you have to uninstall it like I did recently, just make sure to save all your artwork so you don't lose it. And that's looking pretty funky. Get some big wispies. Just do some dots. You get really retro feel. Look at that. What's it called? That bouquet dot look. Like so. And once you have a pattern that you like, we're going to start creating our digital pour image. Like so. You're going to go under filters and swipe all the way to the right until you get to the very end, where you should see expansion, fisheye lens, lens sphere, wave, ripple, twirl, polar coordinates. That's what you want on the screen. I'm going to start off with wave. To start getting that liquid feel. Like so. And then so I don't see the white, go into transform and perspective form and pull those edges back off the screen. And then back into our filters. And we start playing around with that paint a little bit. Okay, like so, we're going to start with a ripple. Like then play with all the settings until you have something that you like. And shrink our aspect ratio down a little bit. And our radius. Play with the phase and the distortion. And the wingdings. Like so. And I say with these ones, you can kind of layer them over top to create quite a pretty interesting image. Like so. Up here, distortion. And sometimes I like to see how it looks with the polar coordinates, which is pretty cool. But I think I'll stick with ripple and just bring down that distortion a little bit and bring it off to the edge over here. So it's pretty cool. It kind of looks like it's swaying off this way. And then once you have a design that you like, you can manipulate it even further under the special pen. Because I find using the filters then get kind of a uniform look. So to really get that wet feeling, I'll further manipulate the paint with the drag feature under the special pen. Like so. If you want to push large. So you can start moving your paint originally from when you first lay it down. You can start with the drag pen, but I find it's not as fluid or as quick as the liquify pen on Procreate. It moves a lot slower. So I find when you use the filters, it gives a good base, and then you can just kind of micro manipulate it afterwards, which makes it a little easier. And then you're having more fun and versus having to sit there and nitpick over it. Like so. And see if that won't work. I find that piece there is looking really bent and straight. So you can use your shrink very carefully. Kind of shrink the edges a little bit and kind of smooth them out. They don't look as pointed. But I find the shrink, you might want to bring the strength down a bit. Under settings, or I'll do the same thing. You'll end up doing the same thing. So yeah, shrink is just a little hard to play with, I find. It takes a lot of practice with it. So that way it doesn't distort your image too much. Like so. Just trying to get that, make it look a little more rounded. You can use your drag feature too and pull it out. Like so. Which looks pretty cool. And then I find I like to go back in. Just give it a little bit more of that liquid feel. That's really trippy. But quite not as intense, and just give it a little bit of a ripple. Make it look a little bit like it's more liquid. Like so. And then again, to get rid of those white edges, go back into transform and perspective form and drag those off. Like so. I think that's starting to look pretty trippy. And then once you have a design that you like, how we're going to create our expand bubble cells is simply with the expand feature here, and it kind of looks like a bubbled little square icon on the liquify pen. And just kind of find a thickness that you like. Start off around 150-ish, like so. And then all you're going to do is you can leave your screen like this, or you can, I like to zoom in so you guys can see what I'm doing. Start picking areas on your screen. You can start blowing out little circles, which is pretty cool. And you can kind of drag it so you can kind of get more of that bean-like shape and more cell-like shapes, like so. And take your time. All the time with these cells is they're kind of tedious. So it's just working at it slowly until you have a pattern that you like. Like I said, these are fun to play with, but they're not as refined, I find, as the Procreate liquify brushes, or the liquify option. So it does take a little playing around with to kind of get used to how they work. Like so. And then you can do a little flyaway cells. You can just do ones that are just starting to pop through a little bit. Haven't quite fully formed. And shrink it even further. And do those really tiny, almost like torch bubbles with tiny cells that pop up. Now again, you're going to want to do it on areas where there's color you can kind of push out and blend out. If you do it on somewhere where it's solid color, you're not going to see it a whole lot. Again, it's just kind of playing around with it and getting used to how the special pen kind of works. Like so. Which is pretty cool. And then, very carefully, you can also use the shrink tool and zoom in, and you can kind of gently shrink in those edges and bring in to kind of give it more of that compact look as well. Just pretty neat. Like so. And then if you don't like the uniform look, you can take your drag tool and kind of push those cells around it to get more of a oblong kind of shape and not so uniform. Circles. If you like the circle look, you can keep the circles. It's one thing that's nice with digital pour art is you can kind of do whatever you want, and it ends up kind of looking cool no matter what you do. Like so. That looks so trippy. And then you can do some really big ones if you want. Pick another area here. Up in the corner. If you don't like necessarily where all the yellow is, you can kind of start pulling that purple and the blue in certain areas to get more of a different color and have them kind of bleed off the screen. Like so. If you want some darker black bubbles, you can bring those in. They look like little jelly beans. I'm going to want candy. You can also do kind of little patterns and shapes too. If you want to get really detailed with it, you can create little flowers. Different little patterns. And they overlap pretty nicely. Just kind of neat. You can do as many as you want. You can fill up your entire canvas. Or you can just do a few here and there. I guess you can do some really, really, really big ones if you wanted to. And have it gigantic. Like all of a sudden you dropped a ton of flow medium or silicone on this canvas and it just splattered everywhere. And get really large with them. Like so. It's pretty cool. And then I find if you don't want to necessarily manipulate them the drag feature, the shrink feature. Once you have the cells that you like, you can then go back into your filters and go back to, you can either do wave again and do the whole screen and kind of give it that rippled look, or you can use ripple and drop your distortion down to 1 and play with the wingdings and drop your radius down very, very tiny and just situate it over the cells themselves, and then you can kind of give them more of a rippled feel and a distorted look that way, opposed to using the special pen, which is kind of cool. Just that way there. Not looking all the same. And like so. It's pretty cool. And those are the basics on how you make expand cells with a special pen on IbisPaint. It turned out pretty cool. And yeah, pretty simple, but you can create some pretty intense things with it, and you can get as simple or as complicated as you like. And I say, if you like this tutorial and you recreate any of the art, definitely tag me, follow me on Instagram or on my socials, and tag me in all of your artwork. I'd love to see everybody's creations. And stay tuned, because I will be hopefully uploading some more tutorials on some different cell techniques as well, and check out my other tutorials that I already have up. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!